Now I'll be calling on the event lead, Mr. Obiora Igweze. He's a certified business analyst, a content creator, an entrepreneur. He has a passion about economic empowerment and social services. He's volunteering as a member of the logistics team and event planning within CNP, and he will be giving us the land acknowledgement. Because here at CNP, we believe in giving honor to whom honor is due. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session. So, just as read, my name is Obiora Igweze. I want to take the land acknowledgement. So, in the spirit and intent of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations, we acknowledge the traditional indigenous territories on which we gather at the beginning of all CNP meetings. By learning, understanding, and acknowledging, we wish to pay respect to Turtle Island, Mother Earth, and the rich indigenous history of Ontario. We recognize that our work takes place on traditional indigenous territories across Ontario. We also wish to acknowledge that the CNP head office is located on the traditional indigenous territory of the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and most recently, the territory of Mississaugas of the Credit. This territory is part of the Dish and the One Spoon Treaty, an agreement between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. This territory is also covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. We wish to express gratitude to Mother Earth and for the resources we are using, and honor all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people who have been living on the land since time immemorial. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now I'll be passing it on to our president, Mrs. Adejisola Atiba, also known as Lady Abba. She's a banker with decades of experience. She always says that banking is a profession and community is a passion. She's the president of Council Nigerian Professionals, CNP. She'll be giving us the welcome address, talking about CNP and also introducing our guest speaker. Over to you, Mrs. Atiba.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon to everybody. Thank you so much for joining. First of all, I'd like to talk about why CNP. Talk about what we've done in the past, what we've done presently, and also then go ahead and introduce our speaker for today. So CNP, the organization, was started to help and support someone else to go further. We are in Canada for a reason. For some, it is to afford a better life for our children, families, and loved ones. We can all learn and gain some sort of experience by connecting, by networking, by communicating with others that worked before us. We're all standing on some other people's shoulder. Some of us have paved way for new people because we have shown excellence in all we do. We have shown perseverance in spite of all odds. And so we'll rather you have better tools than we did to ensure you have better chances in your professional, political, social, and economic life in Canada. And we hope that as new members of the community continue to arrive in Canada, you will pay it forward and help someone be better. What is our vision? We want to equip and support Nigerian professionals in particular and people of African descent in general towards sustainable growth, development, and prosperity in Canada. Our areas of focus includes network to build professional relationship, mentoring new Nigerian professionals and students, build and nurture a positive professional image. We want to be the platform and avenue for information in our community. We want to showcase role models to our youth and children. We want to empower ourselves socially, professionally, and also support our local businesses. Looking forward, some of the things that we plan to do includes to support the holistic well-being of individuals, marriages, and families, to enhance the leadership, career, business, and professional development of members, to provide support to new immigrants and international students, to provide training and information on wealth management and financial empowerment, to provide programs that enhance our children and youth, to foster better integration and understand Canadian multiculturalism and interfaith. When we look back, what are the things that we have done? Last year, we actually gave bursaries to 4 youths in the community when we did our Black History Month essay contest in 2020. We hosted 25 events and seminars and workshops to improve, educate, and motivate our communities. We hired ourselves. We hired 6 staffs, and most of whom have gone on to get better jobs. We connected with over 250 general members over the phone. We paid service rendered by professionals and specialists in our community. We recorded our first CNP documentary iLive musical video. We provided 250 children with school supplies last year. We provide PPE to the community members. We provided families with 585 families with foodstuffs during COVID. We had our first event in Calgary, Alberta, and also in Ottawa last year. Look, so far in 2021, on February 2021, we had a Black History Month celebration and essay contest. And we had 3 youths win those essays. And we also gave bursary of $1,000 to all 3 of them. All 3 of them wants to go on and become medical doctors. They want to be in the medical line. We were able to align them with mentors, medical doctors, to mentor them for 1 year. These are some of the things that we have done. We also celebrated International Women's Day. You can check our YouTube channel for the video. And so we always say that the grass is greener at the other side. The grass is greener because somebody walks at it. It is important for us as community members to walk with our community. And how can you be supportive of your community? We do need membership dues. We do a lot of events. And so we would love for you to be a part of building your community, of making the grass greener at the other side. And you can see all the details for the membership on our website. But just to quickly touch on it, for individuals, it's $60 a year, business $240 a year, family is $100. And if you want to pay post adverts, we have a Telegram group with almost 500 people. We can advertise for you and also on all our social media. We also will be having a town hall next month to brainstorm with everyone on areas you feel we should focus on in April. Details will be shared as early as next week. So why leadership series? This is our maiden edition. The idea is to bring value-adding events, seminars, workshops to our community. We don't need to make our own mistakes. We can learn from other people's pitfalls. We can learn from their successes as it will make our lives better. If you have someone that can refer you to a job, knowing that it will help you, would you rather not have that? According to statistics, 85% of people who network gain employment. Would you not want to be the part of 85 people? This is so we can learn. This leadership series is so we can learn what to do, what not to do, how to navigate our workplace to be better leaders. As Nigerian, as Nigerian and people of African heritage, we want to learn from people in our community who have made a difference. We are also Canadians, and so we will also learn from diverse society and cultures. And so we'll be bringing leaders from different cultures to enlighten us. And so on that note, I want to introduce our speaker for today. Our speaker for today is somebody that I respect so much. I respected her from a distance, and then eventually I got to meet her, and I'm so super excited because she's one of us, and she'll be able to guide us and tell us her story and how she came to be who she is today. So CHINYERE ENI-McLEAN works with RBC. CHINYERE has led individual contributor, leader, and specialist teams to deliver premium business results. Through our stewardship of client relationship within personal, commercial banking, financial planning, and national office strategic capacities, she has enabled proactive, helpful, and relevant advice to clients, leading to positive outcomes and strong business results. CHINYERE successfully launched the first RBC branch and insurance location in Canada in Toronto's waterfront community. She went on to deliver premium new client acquisition results as a senior commercial banker. Within RBC's downtown Toronto branch community, she delivered the highest client loyalty results in the history of RBC's flagship Plaza Main location. As a national office strategist, she differentiated RBC's position in the marketplace with a first-to-market launch of a now $100 million commercial lending program. Currently, CHINYERE leads a team of commercial banking supply chain and industry specialists in the Toronto East region, who are focused on bringing the best of RBC to businesses, business owners, and their employers. Our team stewards this client's relationship by demonstrating in words and in action the positive impact that RBC team can have on client experience. She's accountable for building and executing a market strategy and action plan to capture market share and take ownership of center results in client experience, business performance, portfolio quality, employee engagement, and digital enablement. As an active community leader, CHINYERE is a board member, advisory council participant, and a passionate volunteer for several community organizations, including the War Amputation of Canada, Child Amputee Program, the Amputee Coalition of Canada, and the Princess Margaret Cancer Foundation. She's an active speaker on topics related to our community engagement, including the largest fundraising event in Canada, the Ride to Conquer Cancer, as well as the Continuous Studies Program at the University of Toronto. She has been recognized by the Princess Margaret Cancer Foundation for her impact across thousands of riders in the Ride to Conquer Cancer by demonstrating what's possible as a physically challenged rider. She currently chairs the Community Investment Committee of the largest granting foundation in the country, the Ontario Trillium Foundation. In June 2021, CHINYERE will join the Wilfrid Laurier University Board of Governors. CHINYERE holds a Master's of Bachelor's Administration, MBA, from Rotman School of Business, School of Management at the University of Toronto, a Bachelor's of Art from the University of British Columbia, and a Personal Financial Planning designation. A lifelong active volunteer. In 2013, CHINYERE received the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Award for service to Canada. In 2020, she was recognized as RBC Global Award winner, which acknowledges top-performing employees who have displayed an incredible commitment to give time and expertise to communities by volunteering and leading charitable initiatives. As you can see, she's done a lot, and she continues to do a lot. And in spite of her busy schedule, she's given us her time today. So please give a warm virtual welcome to Ms. CHINYERE ENI-McLEAN.
Thank you. It is so good to be here. I've been looking forward to this for so long. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with all of you. I love that we have a nice intimate group, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion. So why don't I put up the presentation? So just give me a moment here as I navigate the digital and get started. Now, for some reason, it's not giving me the opportunity to share despite our test. So let's try again. Okay, let me know if you can see now. If someone could give me a verbal okay.
You're good.
Good. Okay, we are in business. Thank you so much, everyone. So a little bit about myself. Like many of you on the line, some of my biggest life experiences have come about by things that I've done nothing to earn, which is, who I was born to, where I was born, and many other life experiences that I'm going to share this evening. And so we heard a little bit on the introduction, so we'll skip forward and get started right away. So I wanted to first acknowledge that this is a very special group. Each and every one of you, I'm really grateful for your presence. And I wanted to start off by just thanking you for being a beacon of hope in our community, including for myself. Everyone's journey is unique, and I really just wanted to acknowledge you as Nigerian professionals and the open mindset that you brought to today's session, just to learn, to be keen and curious, and to really spend your Saturday afternoon with me. So I'm very, very grateful. And the reason that you see on the screen a bridge is that my goal in our time today is really to talk about how we can empower ourselves to build bridges between the Nigerian experience and the Canadian experience in a way that enables us all to thrive. And so the conversation is really about focusing on the and more than the or. Really, what can we do with both, and how can we position ourselves strongly? And so I want to offer myself up as a bridge today to share my journey and experiences, both personally, very personally, and professionally, to really support you in whatever next step you have on your journey and in your career. And so really, I just want to say thank you very, very much. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the huge family component that is the foundation for each and every one of us on the line. When you think about Nigerian culture, and I have to acknowledge that I'm here in large part because of the love and support of my family. My Nigerian father, who's actually on the line, who has snuck in today's session. Hi, Dad. Like many of you, he allowed me the opportunity to dream big. And so despite the significant challenges that he faced, he really enabled us with a couple of core values, which is being authentic to ourselves, valuing and caring for others, acting with integrity, pursuing excellence, and honoring the life-changing power of education and perseverance. And of course, always reminding me how much I'm loved, and I'm feeling that tonight, Dad. And so at this time in the pandemic, I know that we're actually in more headwinds than we've ever been in before. When you think about the disparity of experience that exists for Nigerian Canadians, we really must play and continue to play a role in for ourselves, for one another, and for our children when it comes to setting the stage for us to thrive. And I can promise you one thing this evening: I certainly don't have all the answers, but what I do know is that we're all privileged to have the opportunity to connect as a community and with our families. And so my goal today is that we leave with the sense that we're to leave no one behind, and that we are to challenge one another to be more excellent day by day. And so I'm very humbled at the opportunity to share, and I just want to say thank you to each of you. And so if no one has told you today, I am cheering for you. You beat me to this one, which is fantastic. I wanted to start off with a land acknowledgement because there are such rich histories, traditions, and stories in every place across the globe. And I'm really, really thrilled that you were able to deliver a land acknowledgement today, which is very special. And so maybe what I might do now is offer a bit of insight into culture, Indigenous culture, and really help frame our thinking for tonight's chat. And so the Seven Grandfathers Teachings is really a bedrock of Indigenous culture across many nations. And these are the seven things I'd love you to keep in mind when we get to the chat. I'm hoping you can use your voice, ask questions, and I'd be happy to answer as honestly and openly as I can. So to keep in mind that we all have wisdom, to have the courage to speak, to respect the opinions of others, to love and support one another. Honesty is the best policy. Exercise humility when sharing, and to speak your truth. And when I thought about tonight, I just thought this is such a wonderful opportunity when we're all isolated to just connect and really open up ourselves to be vulnerable and to get the most out of today's session. So without further ado, this is a little bit of the roadmap that I'm hoping we can go through tonight. I'd love to open up to share a little context around our lives now, how much it's changed, some of the challenges and headwinds we've faced. I will share my personal story and some key experiences, and I'm sure that many of you will relate to many moments, regardless of your path. We're going to talk a little bit about the concept of an invisible backpack and what we carry on our journey through life and how that informs and at least inform my path forward. And I'm going to share some guiding principles with you. And then bouncing back, how do we bounce back not just to the same spot, but to a stronger position? How do we cultivate resiliency within ourselves despite these headwinds? And then what are the couple key messages that have been guiding principles for me throughout my long career with RBC and the many different roles that I've had within it. And so the one thing I wanted to just call out right at the beginning is around the land acknowledgement and just around the reality that unlike Nigerians after colonialism, Indigenous peoples did not gain independence. And so there is such a complex system that determines Indigenous rights and identity, which is longer than I can provide in the session. But really, I just wanted to express my gratitude for the gesture of reconciliation that you shared today and for your commitment to kind of work together, make sure that, as I said before, that we all pull each other up. So without further ado, there's an elephant in the room, and I wanted to, I guess my dad maybe shared a little bit about that in advance, but I wanted to get one important question out of the way, which is, so are you really Nigerian? And I get that a lot. And so this is just a little map that shows my father on the line is from Anambra State, emigrated to Canada. And my other lineage comes from Little Pine First Nation. My mother is Cree First Nations. And I'm going to bring the voice of a second generation Nigerian to the talk today and share what the insights look like. And I'm hoping this will give you a view into what some of your children might be facing, some of those in your network. And, there's such a diversity of experiences across our community. And so the voice really that I'll be bringing today is one of a second generation Nigerian who values and honors culture. There's certain things that I can speak to around Nigerian culture and certain challenges, but not passing things with the left hand. And, do I speak the language? No, I don't. But I was raised with cultural competency given my strong presence of my father and also really equally value the influences of my mother and Indigenous peoples. And what I think you'll find is that there's many commonalities between the two cultures. And I'm hoping to share a bit of that today with you. And so how I identify is as a Canadian of Nigerian and Cree descent. So I wanted to start off a little bit about where the operating environment, what life is like for all of us in our homes right now, and just a couple of realities that impacted me personally growing up. And so on your screen, you'll see the map of Canada. You'll note that more than half of the Black population is located here in Ontario, and I've circled here Saskatchewan and British Columbia. And so the lens or perspective that I bring is spending most of my growing up years on the West Coast, where there was 0.01% of a Black population. And that has absolutely had an impact. I felt growing up as if I was a minority amongst minorities, even though I'm Canadian born. And it was definitely something that shaped me when it came to growing up. 4 out of 10 children in Canada are second generation, and I found a study that really talked and spoke about what I've been feeling growing up with this hybrid identity and fitting in and that seeking that connection and belonging, and it articulated in these couple points on the screen. So this researcher is out of Ottawa, University of Ottawa, and she did a study just on African Canadian young adults. And I definitely relate to each and every one of these, and that is they tend to have an interest in their African heritage strongly. They identify very strongly with Canadian culture, despite being treated as an outsider here, even though being born in Canada. And they exhibit signs of 2 identities, which is what's called double consciousness. The ancestral land where my father is from, would regard me as a Westerner, right? And then in Canada, I'm regarded as African. And so I embrace certainly those 2 identities, and those cultural influences have absolutely shaped my experience. And what the study found was that, yes, despite being born in Canada, second generation Africans are proud to be the children of the landed, but they're also born of the land. And this group, there's a couple of really important trends that are being noticed when it comes to the explosion of population in Blacks in Canada. And the reason I share this is I wanted to make sure we have a common foundation around what I want to share very personally around my story and how that shaped my career. So the Canadian context is, the Black population has doubled in size over the past 20 years, but there's something very important that I think is another elephant in the room, and that is the COVID impact. There's absolutely no denying that that Blacks have faced an additional challenge, especially when it comes to COVID. And so when I look here, this will speak to the immigration trends around African newcomers. And before 1981, you'll notice that the majority of Black immigrants came from Jamaica and Haiti. And there's been this explosion, predominantly from Africa, in terms of newcomers to the country. And so the conversation we're having tonight around lifting each other up, supporting one another, and making sure we continue to progress in ways that are meaningful to us is super important. And I just wanted to call out that trending. Now, when it comes to the headwinds of the pandemic, we already had some challenges in terms of being in Canada and facing some of the disparities of experience that exist. But I wanted to comment that especially for Black women, the hit around COVID and the pandemic has been huge. And this is something I felt, I'm sure many of you on the line have felt. And these are a couple of the key trends that I wanted to comment on. So the gap that existed when it came to unemployment has intensified given COVID, and there's been a huge gap that's widening. And as a result, education has become a really important mitigant, and that has shown up in the data as something that has offered a protective factor to what's happening right now in our society. The second is income and housing deficit, so a lack of intergenerational wealth. Many Blacks do not own homes, and so when it comes to having that opportunity to start that business, that opportunity to take a step forward with a program that you're really interested in becomes that more challenging without that grounding aspect of wealth within this country. And then when it comes to income equality, the largest gap absolutely affects Blacks in Canada. And I know that's a big bucket, but that's the data we have. And we're more likely to have suitable housing needs, and that would be adequacy, suitability, and affordability. And so when you look at the scales and how we're trying to tip them, the lack of a national childcare strategy for Black women is having an impact. And a couple of the facts at the bottom are representing the challenge or the headwind that each one of us on this line tonight needs to navigate successfully to thrive within our professional lives. And so this worries me when it comes to the wage gap, when it comes to unemployment. I think we all have a bit of responsibility here to do what we can to help one another. And so how does second generation fare? I have to acknowledge that this is very important data. There's an investment that all newcomers make coming to the country to support family. And when you come, the data tells us that there's significantly lower earning power, and that's a sacrifice. And when I say that I'm honored to be here, I just want to say, if no one has told you, thank you for all the things that you've gone through to do what you need to do to pursue your goals and pursue your needs. I just want to say thank you very much. And certainly the wage gap landing in Canada is highest amongst our community. And second generation, thankfully, given the strong and being Nigerian, the value around education is huge. That gift of prioritizing cultural learnings, the value of education, those values I spoke of in the beginning of the call have been critical to lifting up second generation individuals like myself. We tend to do a little bit better when it comes to earning power, and that's all with the exception of South Asian immigrants, where there's a little bit of difference in the data. But a huge thank you, and I just want to acknowledge that I am now part of that privileged group that has learned to navigate in this environment and been raised here. And when it comes to the third generation of immigrants, the income level kind of levels out. And so it really tells a story around the investment that is being made in our community. Now, my dad, I'm going to embarrass you on the line, so didn't know you were going to join, but I wanted to give a little bit of history around my lineage and how that's influenced me. So my dad, Dr. Godwin Eddy, fled the Biafran War with a bullet lodged in his arm and emigrated to a very cold and lonely Canada. And he was the first physiotherapy graduate from the University of Baden. And he's a retired professor from the University of British Columbia in the Faculty of Medicine. He's the, I shouldn't say chair, he's the co-founder for the Vancouver Nigerian Association and a former chair for the Multicultural Society. And he spent his career not only as a university professor, but as an international health consultant, and was invited back to serve in 2007. I had the good fortune of being able to visit my dad while he was teaching there, visit our village of Ajali, spend some time with my grandmother, my family, stayed in the village, and really was able to have that link and connection with community through his time in Nigeria. And he's been absolutely a beacon of hope for me. You'll learn a little bit later in the story that I share, but I wanted to say that ironically, whenever I tell people my background, I think the image that pops up is one of disparity and poverty and challenge. And I feel like I'm very fortunate that I've had such strong family values, leaders in my family, and I come from a very long line of strong individuals that have done great things, as many of your families have. You know, when you need to relocate and build a new life, it's not easy, and so I wanted to call that out. And then the second part of my heritage is Cree, and so this is a picture of my great-great-grandfather, Chief Poundmaker, who in 2019, on May 23rd, was exonerated by Pierre Trudeau for treason. He was a leader in our community, really fought alongside Louis Riel to free the Cree Nation. When they were face starving, he was jailed, and it took 132 years for him to be exonerated by the government. And so this is a picture of him. This is my late grandmother. We call grandmother Kukum in Cree language. She was a professional, I shouldn't say professional, but a beloved bead maker. Her work of beading that she's holding in her hands is featured in the museum in Saskatoon because she was one of the last medicine women in her community. And this is a picture of my mother, Liza, and myself, and we are at a Sundance in 2019 in our community, which is an important cultural gathering. And so I'm very close to both my cultures, and I wanted to kind of honor them today and share a little bit about how that has shaped me. So this is a sobering slide, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that intergenerational impact on my life. There was a study, and you'll see at the bottom there, it's the CDC Kaiser, who did a study called Adverse Child Experiences. And what they did was they looked at 17,000 children across a long period of time. And what they found was a very significant alignment with health outcomes. And so what you see here is a pyramid that talks about historical trauma. So on my dad's side, that would be the Biafran War and fleeing, literally fleeing with a bullet in his arm. For my mother, she was a residential school survivor who essentially went through cultural genocide, was trying to be stripped of her language, her culture, and moved to reserve environments. So this is something that I would say is prevalent and guides my thinking. I'm aware of the sacrifices my parents have made, but I'm also someone that has experienced a lot of this, and I'm sure many of you have as well, given that the newcomer experience in and of itself is a very, very big experience in one's life, and one that has many implications. And so the reason I show this is I'm going to come back to it, but when it comes to our very life and what we go through, it's really important that we pause and take stock of how that can impact our health, for our futures, for our children's future. For those of you that have children on the line, I wanted to arm you with this information around the direct link of having significantly more risk when it comes to early childhood trauma and how we navigate those day-to-day moments at home during the pandemic, the level of stress, all of that, it really shows up in our health. And given that we're all individuals that have a bit more headwind, it's something I think we need to hold dear, and I'll explain a little bit about why. And so this is a picture of the old me. This is a little view of my early life. This is shortly after I moved to Vancouver. Healthy, happy child, and being part of that 0.01% of Vancouver, I felt definitely a sense of longing for connection, longing for belonging, and I dreamed big, thanks to my family. I wanted to be an athlete at first. I was really into track and field, and later on I wanted to be a doctor. And so I had this very optimistic outlook, and it was something that while I, at times felt that, being in Vancouver, I was extremely dark. I struggled with identity and fitting in. I felt that I didn't like my hair texture. I remember being in the Wizard of Oz, and they brushed out my hair to be in the session, and I just cried because I didn't see any little girls like me. I couldn't find a black doll. There was a lot of moments that just made me feel that I was very different. I didn't need anyone else like myself, and it was something that was a struggle, really, just to try to fit in. And what I did as a child, I was a very happy child, was I found that, I was able to bridge some commonality by just being very interested in other people and having a positive attitude, because that's something that I learned at home. And so what I wanted to share was a little bit about that time. And so around this time, I went on a trip, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the journey. This is my sister and I on a trip that shortly thereafter changed my life. This is me dancing. I had some leg warmers on, and it was a time when we were just having a good time visiting our home community. So I was in Saskatoon when this picture was taken. I was having a wonderful trip, going back to my First Nation. We went skating. We had a great time. I loved connecting with my family. And on the flight back, I went to the bathroom, and on the way back from the bathroom, I fell, and I bumped my leg against one of the chairs on the flight. And I got back to my seat, and slowly as that flight went on, I kept scratching my skin. And it wasn't until we almost landed that I noticed that I'd almost scratched through the skin. And my sister, who was on the plane, just said, "What are you doing?" And my skin was getting raised, and it was very warm to the touch. And it wasn't until I got home, we went to the doctor, and they said, "You know what, it's inflamed tissue, something like a hematoma, you're going to be fine, go home for a couple weeks." And over that few weeks, I had a hard time walking. And that mass that was kind of itchy got bigger and bigger and warmer to the touch, and I started limping. And so my parents took me back, and that's when I encountered my first experience around being an 8-year-old girl, going into a hospital knowing there's something happening and having to get a blood test done. Needless to say, being a strong-minded kid, I bolted. I ran, ran down the hospital. They caught me, and my dad and others held me so I could get that blood work. And little did I know that was going to be the easy part. So shortly thereafter, we realized that I needed something called a biopsy to just check what was happening with my leg. And so I went through my very first surgery experience. And when I came out, I woke in a room. My parents weren't around. They were in a long meeting with the doctor. And when my father came into the room, and being a strong Igbo man, showing emotion is not something I was used to. But his eyes were welled with tears. And when your parent shows that kind of emotion, your heart's really never quite the same, is it? And he explained that I had the same kind of cancer as Terry Fox. I was given less than a 10% chance of survival, and that I would need treatment and surgery on my leg. And we cried together. We looked out the window and cried, and we saw this massive black cloud. And you might think in Vancouver, hey, it rains a lot, right? This is not unusual. But it was that kind of foreboding cloud that it was unnerving, and it was unusual, and it was right outside my window. And it wasn't a good sign. And at that time, my dad looked at me, and we joined wrists, and he said, "Ne, if I die, you die." And we made a pact called a bando, which basically was a pact for life. that we were going to fight the disease, that he was not going to leave my side, and that we were going to beat it. And I just was so idolizing my hero that I believed that if my dad could have hope in a moment like this, maybe I could too. And I looked out the window again, and the cloud was gone. And there was sunshine streaming through the room. And it was a moment that we were bonded in such a way that I just felt safe, and I was going to go and fight. And so what I share about this was that after this trip, my life profoundly changed, and how it changed was very different than what someone going through cancer would experience today. Unlike today, when you go home after, let's say, chemotherapy treatment, at that time, there was a sense that your immunity would be better in the hospital, which we now know it's not. So I had experience going to school in the hospital, making friends, and being really removed from my normal life and out of my element. And despite all the happy pictures on the walls, I saw a lot of suffering in the population that was there. And this was Ward 3B in BC Children's Hospital. And there were 13 kids at the time with various forms of cancer that got very, very close. And so after I went through my first few treatments, and I'm going to abbreviate a little bit here. And the reason I'm looking at my notes is this is very hard for me to talk about. And I tend to focus on the positive, but I think it's important to talk a little bit and paint a picture of what that experience was like and how that turned up in my nature later on. And so it was pretty terrifying. I remained there between chemotherapy treatments, and that transition from being a healthy, active child before this was a terrifying proposition. And so my neighbors all suffered from different kinds of cancer, and most often we would sleep in a pod, rooms of 4, and go to school, do homework together, watch TV, and my mom was instrumental in pushing our beds together and creating a sleepover effect for us to get our minds distracted. My dad worked on visualization and imagining Disneyland trips and all kinds of things except the needle and the drugs that were being pumped through my body. And the 32 pills a day that I took at that time, without having ever taken a pill before at that age, I felt extremely embarrassed because I would wake up to patches of my hair falling out. I lost my gender identity because everyone thought I was a little boy. And I was embarrassed by having to bear catheters, bedpans, and have people look down at me when I was in a wheelchair, which was something very different from this active child you see. This is a picture of what happened after my amputation. So you'll see on the left, my amputation is the highest form of leg amputation outside of a hemipelvectomy, which is part of your hip. So when you think of your leg, you have a thigh bone, you have a hip. And my whole thigh bone, this was the part that was infected with cancer. And so they took out my thigh bone. So I have no hip, no knee, no ankle joint. And most of the people with my form of disability are in wheelchairs because it's extremely heavy to wear an artificial limb. You cannot use a suction limb because you have no stump, and I'll use that word. I don't love it, but I'll use the word because you don't have anything to attach to. So what I have to wear is a brace that covers up to my waist. I'm not allowed to gain more than 5 pounds throughout my adult life, and it takes me 70% more energy just to walk. On the right is a picture of that genderless person that looks very different than how I look now, but really helped shape who I was in the sense of empathy and kindness and doing for others, because I was a benefactor of so many people trying to help. And so that's part of how it shaped my thinking. And so when I think about that time, one of the most important experiences that I think shaped me and gave me something that was a bit of luggage after the experience is the loss and learning about death at a young age. And so given the survival rates were so poor at that time, out of the children that were there, only 2 of us survived. And because we were young, we weren't often told what happened to the others. So if I woke up in that pod of 4, I'd wake up and someone would be missing. And I would ask, where did that person go? And they'd say they went home and they're going to rest. And then they wouldn't come back, and later on I would learn that they passed away. And so I quickly learned that going home was a very bad thing. I managed the death, I guess, as well as could be expected. But one of my very dearest friends suffered from a form of liver cancer and juvenile diabetes. We did our sleepovers at each other's houses outside of the hospital when we did get out, and she was the one that showed me the ropes in the hospital. And without going into too much detail, there was a day that came that was very difficult. She got moved rooms, and I ended up going down a hallway, peeking in her room, and for the first time she didn't have the energy to turn her head to look at me. And I had that feeling that something was happening. And shortly after, I heard she went home. And so unlike the other kids, since this was my best friend at the time, I called her and I said, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And she said, you remember that last sleepover when we were watching that show, that music show? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, I can't see it anymore because I've gone blind. So I'm trying to, it was a VCR, I'm trying to watch it again and listen to it. And I remember the parts. And I remember my heart sinking. And then I thought, okay, I stayed on the line a few more minutes. And then a couple of days later, I got to call her back in between my treatments. And at that time, it was hard for her to speak. And I said, how come you're talking so loud? And she said, because I'm losing my hearing. I'm going deaf in one ear, and it's hard for me to hear out of the other one. And so within the span of, a week and a half, my dearest friend lost her vision, lost her hearing, and lost her life. And so that had a profound impact on me. And it gave me a sense of what I now know is called survivor guilt. It's the feeling of, why am I here? What makes me different? Why did I survive when so many other people didn't, that were very worthy souls? And I didn't have that question answered. And so I thought, I talked to my parents about it, and they encouraged me to focus on what I could do. What was left of my body? What kind of thing could I do? And so instead of treating me like a cancer patient, I would come home from school and my dad would practice balancing with me. He would actually literally push me over to make sure that I could learn to balance on my one leg. And that was training at home. And so it prepared me for what was a new life to come. And this is a little bit of a view of my new life. It started with the crutches and learning to trust something not attached to my body. And actually, I would say it started with the wheelchair. I should have these reversed. I was in a wheelchair for quite some time after recovery because I was too weak. And then I eventually learned crutches, and then I eventually got to walk on my artificial limb, which you see here. And so this is quite a heavy thing. It's named, it's my dearest friend. And this is part of how I show up in the world. Is I look whole, but there's a lot going on underneath in terms of me showing up myself physically. And so I have a quote here, which is, the worst thing about a disability is that people see it before they see you. And so my personality has evolved to really be more outgoing. I'm really curious about people. And part of that is how I manage that vulnerability of speaking to something that is really, really hard. And so this is a little bit about after the cancer experience. So I had this trauma, and I went home. And so now I'm a little black girl in Vancouver with no hair, or awkwardly growing back. I would only let people walk on one side of me because of the squeak of my artificial limb. Because I was black, I couldn't get a black leg. I had a white foot up until my 30s. And I finally got to be able to wear a foot that was my skin color. And it was a very, very tough time. And what I think people don't realize about cancer is that there's a number of unwanted stowaways in life. And I share this because trauma is trauma, whether it's you have fled a war, or you've gone through cancer, or you've struggled with a single mother and lack of support. We all have a crap factor in our life of things that just show up. And these are some of the odds that I faced coming out of cancer. So 60 to 170% of cancer survivors from childhood don't finish high school. Most become depressed and socially isolated. And that was me for approximately 5-6 years, of heavy depression, dreams of death. Like, I didn't know until I had the language later that what I actually went through was a post-traumatic stress disorder. A form of that is the same type of reaction people going through war get. And many never gain regular employment after. And so what's shocking as well is that 2/3, so almost 70%, even when you're cancer-free for years, even when you're remission, and you might know people that are cured is a dangerous word because you're cured, but you have these effects that no one sees, and they think their challenge is done, but actually a new one is beginning, and that is the impact of these medications and solutions for you. And so, you know, that pyramid I showed at the top has translated into different health outcomes for me as a result of bearing that experience. So I'd like to come back to this idea of an invisible backpack and the stuff that we carry. And so I have on here what's in yours, but everyone has something. And one of the ways that I've navigated being different at work, being different in my personal life, struggling to fit in at times, has been this image that I have in my head that everyone has one of these. And I may not know what's going on in their day-to-day lives, but I know they have one. And if we go underneath race, if we go underneath this racism or the symptom, I'll call it, it's often connected to fear. It's often connected to vulnerability. And I've focused on trying to connect on a human level where possible with people and opening up and not assuming people know about me. So I'll share openly, and in return, I do hope that others share with me openly. So as newcomers on the line, you know, this was something that really stood out to me around mental health. And I would say the number one thing that I would share in terms of advice, especially now, would be protecting and nurturing mental health. And I laughed because, you know, one of the most stressful experiences in life is actually moving homes, just homes. Moving countries, I have no idea what that feels like and the level of stress. And here's a couple of the ways that it shows up. But it's absolutely imperative that as a beacon of hope for your family, for your community, that you make sure that you are investing in yourself first. The ways that I do this are meditation. I'll often meditate before a big meeting. I've seeked out help when I need to, and I've identified a very effective and very affordable form of mental health care for anyone who has struggled with post-traumatic stress or significant trauma, and that's called EMDR, which I'll get into a little bit later. This is the foundation of mental health. This is a colorful picture, but in the middle, it shows your window of tolerance. So this is when you're, you know, this is your normal equilibrium. And when you are outside of that, you're either hyper aroused on the depressed side or overreactive. And because of COVID right now, because of what's happening in many households and families and the stressors of employment and all of these things, it's a useful image to say that mindfulness, grounding, breath work will bring you back in your zone. It's really, and it will also bring you out of this one. And so I like to picture that. And when I feel myself getting very tightly wound up because of the volume of work or very, you know, frustrated, it's something that I envision and I stop myself and slow down so that I can respond instead of react to some of the things that are coming up. And EMDR, what I mentioned previously, essentially uses rapid eye movement to help you recall some traumatic experiences and literally refile them in your brain in a way that's psychologically safe for you. And it has, and a quick example is within a couple sessions, call it 2 sessions of therapy work that I did a couple years ago around my disability and losing my leg and all I went through, which I just touched on today. We identified that I hadn't looked in the mirror below the waist for my life, my adult life. I had no idea when I was going in the mirror to only look from the waist up, because when I came home from that session, for the first time I looked below the waist and I cried and I thought, oh my goodness, I didn't know I needed that work. And my goodness, I really, really did. And so to think of 2 sessions versus a year-long set of sessions to deal with something very targeted, it can be very effective and accessible. And I wanted you each to walk away with that knowledge that I have. So when it comes to what can we do around supporting best outcomes for the next generation, it's really around managing these experiences when they come and being present, which is not easy, but is absolutely critical. So Now I'd like to switch a little bit to fast forward my working life and imposter syndrome, which you've probably talked a lot about on other calls, but just the sense that I don't belong here. I don't walk in most meetings and have anyone look like me. And it's frustrating. And I've struggled with confidence, finding my voice for many, many years. And so the reason that I have this book up on the left-hand side is this book by Simon Reynolds called Why People Fail is part of an example, a little story I'll share around where imposter syndrome showed up for me in a moment of truth and what I learned from it. I remember going into my first big job in head office doing strategy work, and this was the most white environment in terms of I didn't see anybody on my floor as a person of color. I remember feeling really a lot of anxiety, working really hard. I thought I probably said yes to more than I should have because I wanted to do a good job. I was afraid to ask questions because I thought, oh my gosh, I'm just going to stand out more if I ask the question. Let me take 2 times longer and try to figure it out myself, which is not recommended. And I really was shrinking myself because I was trying to meet some standard or climb some path of righteousness. So I remember going to meet my mentor, and a longtime mentor, and I sat down and I brought this book, Why People Fail, and I said, you know what, I read this book in preparation for our meeting. I listed my 5 biggest reasons why I'm failing and what my action plan is and what I'm going to do about it. And she looked at me and she said, please, please get rid of the book. She said, you're going about it all wrong. Like, let's talk about your strengths. Let's not talk about all the things that are going wrong. And it was in that moment I realized that this tape playing in my head was not only affecting how I feel, it was affecting how I showed up. And it wasn't helping me in any way. And that was when I first learned the lesson that what you focus on grows. And she challenged me to go home and, anytime there's a negative thought, to think of the alternative. And if you try this for 24 hours, I guarantee it will be very tough. You'll become really aware of your negative thoughts. But it helped me build a practice around challenging my negative self-talk that has really opened me up. And in those moments when I feel vulnerable, allowed me to actually do the work that I need to do. Another example here is requirements, and you'll see women tend to wait till they're 100% qualified before they apply for the job. This has happened to me many times where I just thought, okay, I'm not there yet. I'm just gonna keep going. And a very wonderful colleague was critical to me taking on the position I have now by saying, you know what, you've got it, and put up your hand, because if you don't, no one else will. And I would encourage any of you that are on the brink of should I not, to be bold, to trust yourself, and to know that yes, you navigate this, but there's a way, and that is challenging yourself to take that next step and put up your hand. So when it comes to bouncing back and cultivating resiliency, one of the realities is you can bounce back to the same place, you can bounce back higher. And the challenge, and why you saw me get emotional a little earlier, is because it's really hard to focus on looking around when you don't like what you see. When you're at that low point of feeling isolated, feeling depressed, feeling you're not where you want in your life, if you have a challenge, like a health challenge like I did, or your journey here has got you feeling low, it's important to sit and actually allow those feelings to happen and to do the work of where can I show up? It's what's left that counts is the second kind of guiding principle that I have. Yes, part of my body's cut off. Who cares? What am I going to do with the rest, right? What am I going to, I don't have the job I want. What am I going to do now to get to the next one? And so it's kind of a so what, now what approach to life. And if you take that time to really slow down at the bottom of the curve, I believe you can bounce back even higher and with a much higher EQ than you could ever imagine, and the confidence that you're looking for. But if you don't do that work, it can be very easy to come back to not quite the same place. And so even though it's hard, even though it's messy, I would encourage taking time to actually do the work in that low moment, because it will set the foundation. Life is like this. It'll set the foundation for what comes next. And so here's a little bit about the journey since. This is my bike. So the Ride to Conquer Cancer, I learned how to bike a little while ago and did some rides of a couple 100K, which I never thought I could do. And many people with 2 legs didn't finish, but one of the things that helped me was I looked at it as an expensive therapy session where all I did was think about my experience and look at the other riders and the pictures of moms and dads that had passed away and think, I can do the next pedal. I did 200 kilometers on one leg over 2 days straight, about, I would say, 15 hours of riding a day straight. That is possible just because of focusing on the next pedal. I don't think I showed up there planning on not finishing, but because of that deep work that I allowed myself to do on the road, I learned that I can actually do more than I thought. And even though I'm part of that 1% of amputees that has a bit different challenge around trusting these 3 joints that I have, I can do something with it. And so it's what's left that counts has been really important. And so you'll see a documentary there. These are all things that came about by chance, but I seize the moment when they come because I had role models, my parents. I've had mentors that I think I highly respect, that I think if they can do it, maybe I can do it. And part of our experience is making sure we use our voice in that moment to help somebody else. And a quick example I'll share career-wise is one of our senior executive retired. I didn't know her, but I cried when she retired. Why did I cry? Because she was the only woman of color in the most senior position, and the fact that she was just there made a difference for me. And so I'm hoping that if I can get out of my comfort zone, do some of these things, that maybe somebody else might think they can do it too. So here's a couple tips that I've had, and I really want to leave a lot of time for some discussion about intersectionality. And you'll see the stick people, all the different things that come in, and we all face this. On the right, you'll see a couple of areas that have really helped me, and I'm curious what yours are. But mental health, I would say, is the foundation. Meditation, visualizing the outcome, writing my performance review a year in advance of what I want to do, and putting in motion some steps by doing that. Just imagining it is something I find really helpful. A learning mindset. I'm really curious. I like learning and thirsty for it, and having that learning, but a humble learning mindset can be extremely helpful to navigating any new environment. And by new, even though I've been with RBC for a long time, every 2 to 3 years I've changed jobs for a long time. And they've been very different, from investments to credit to strategy to fraud, all kinds of different things. And just having that level of adaptability and that mindset is really, really critical. From education, and many of you mentioned it, and congratulations to each of you who introduced yourself earlier, I wanted to share something that I thought of when I was doing my master's, and it was that moment when I could have gone to a school that was online that would be much more comfortable for me. I was running a branch at the time and busy. I could have done that and it would have been a bit easier. But what I chose to do was I went to Rotman. Why? Because I know I don't have access to a privileged network of bankers. I didn't come from a banking family. I didn't know anyone in the bank when I started. I wanted to build a network strategically, and I thought if I got accepted to these 3 schools, I'm going to pick the one that's going to give me the best network so that I can call somebody in future and say, what are you doing in your industry? I want the network, and I don't have it. And especially moving here, not knowing a soul on my own, many years before I had any family in town, that was really important moment of truth for me to be strategic about, and it has paid off more times than I can mention. The 4th thing is finding commonality and allies. I don't expect to meet many people that have the same background, but I do expect to get to know people and to build allies in a network. And so whenever I've met people, I've tried to be curious about them and connect, and that has really helped me discover some people that I just have a natural, genuine fit with that I would say are allies. And then the 5th one is demonstrating an understanding of the business and work. For the first 10 years of my career, I didn't know how things worked. I knew my little piece of it. I didn't really understand how to really go about, how do you get a sponsor? How do you get a mentor? How do you move positions into something completely different without being asked to do so? What if I want to do that? understanding wherever climate you're in and really how things get done, not just what gets done, but how it gets done has been really important. Leaning into strengths in that imposter example, striving for excellence. So really I compete with myself, no one else. I really want to be better, or the best version of myself. Finding your voice. This is something that I'll be honest, it took me many, many years and I'm still working on it. Finding the courage to speak up, finding the courage to go after what you want and be bold when things aren't going well. That's been really critical to me developing as a leader. And then the ninth one is about transferable skills, this concept. And I'll recommend a book that I've read. It's called Range. And it's about how generalists will trump specialists in the modern world, in the digital environment. And your level of adaptability, your level of problem solving, these are the skills of the future. They will help you. And that's something that I've taken longer probably to get to this position than some of my peers. But I've done this very deliberate dance of getting a nice broad base, because that has opened up many more opportunities for the long term for me. So it takes a bit longer, but instead of now having one stream as a specialist to get to a leadership role, by doing that broadening early in career, now I have many different avenues in case one doesn't work out. And then the last is being true to yourself. No one wants a talking head. Be true to yourself, do things that you're passionate about, don't fake it, be authentic. And, you know, if there's areas that you're passionate about, that's the best kind of work you can do. And coming down here, trauma and health, I keep coming back to this. Another mantra that I kind of follow is grow or die. And in those moments of I'm tired, I need to take that next step, I imagine that if I don't, I'm literally letting go of something. If I want to keep mobile, I need to take the next step. I need to be growing. If I want to navigate my career, I'm going to have to go through the hard stuff and learn it and suck it up and do the work. And if I don't, then I might be leaving that stream to wither. And so grow or die has been a primary focus in my mind around how I manage my life and how I try to manage the risks that we all face when you have adverse experiences of any kind. Mine happened to be in childhood. And so the key learnings that are here, first and foremost, that it's what's left that counts. You may not have the same network in Canada. You may be out of your element in certain areas in your area of work. What are you going to lean into that you have yourself that is a strength? So it's what's left that counts is something really significant. What you focus on grows. So being aware of the story you're playing in your head versus the one you really want. And using some visualization, whatever, depending on how you learn. There's a number of exercises we can chat about that can help you with that. Grow or die, the micro moments count. There's no big moment in your career where you've arrived. It's the journey. And the best advice I got was do a great job in the one you're in order to get to the next one. And so, you know, what do you need to keep investing in to strengthen? What are you going to need a couple jobs from now that you can work on now and nurture on your own? Volunteering for me has offered leadership well before I got into leadership, and it's been a way of stretching myself in an area of passion that has helped me. And then last but not least, purpose isn't a destination, it's dynamic, it evolves, it changes. How is your purpose evolving? What do you have? You know, like I mentioned the ride to conquer cancer. I don't do the ride anymore. I did it many years in a row. I want to keep my one remaining knee and leg. I don't want to push my body that hard. That was my time. And I wanted to leave on a high and start another chapter. Maybe you're in that place too, where you need to let something go to create space. And something that guides me here, Warren Buffett does this, creates his top list of 5 things that are important for the year. And any good opportunity that comes up in the year that is not going to support one of those, even if it's an amazing opportunity, he'll say no. And what that's helped me with is that it's okay to go in and out, ebb and flow for things and prioritize for greatest impact. And you're going to have to say no to some pretty amazing things to be able to give your lifeblood to the ones that are really going to make the biggest difference for you. And so we can talk a little bit about that. So on the people side, outside of this professional list, there's a couple of things that I wanted to arm you with as we kind of close off and get ready to go into questions. And that is the power of strength. I remember being in the hospital and noticing that the kids that had their parents not visit quite as often died quicker. So having the courage to stay connected even in tough moments and be there to look when things are getting tough, it actually can be a life-saving skill. Hope can be a life-saving skill. That's the visualization of the Disneyland that I did with my father, Ibando, the pact that we made. Imagining different outcomes has been a powerful healing tool for me, and I hope can be one for you. Tenacity, I wanted to let you know that having a dedicated advocate matters. And if you don't have family here, you can nurture advocates in that ally group, and being deliberate on what you need in terms of your network of support. And so for me, that was family. They were the ones that asked the tough questions in the hospital. They were the ones that would push back. They never let me take a needle alone. And having that was really key. Perseverance. I've met hundreds of different people with amputation in my lifetime, and I've seen many, many different outcomes. On the one end, I've seen a lot of thriving, and on the other end, I've seen a lot of challenge. And so that perseverance and that mindset will be huge to enabling anybody in life. And that coddling children doesn't help. That pushing me over and practicing, creating moments of practice for real life skills, whether it's racism or cancer or disability, is important. Unity, the sacred pact, like Ibando and my 14-year-old sister cutting off all her hair in solidarity, were absolutely huge. And so the unity I see on this call is magnificent. And then lastly, when I reflect on my single greatest progress as a human being, it is absolutely rooted in connection. People before strategy, people first, then purpose, then performance. And when you see people on that humanistic level and you focus on that, you're always able to come to a better outcome. The smartest mind in the room is a collective, and I firmly believe that. And so reaching out to connect with somebody, especially now, is a key survival factor. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you for letting me share a little bit about my story and my journey. I'm extremely open to any questions or comments that you have, and thank you for being present and listening to me on a Saturday afternoon. I really appreciate it. So back to you, and we can see if we have any questions or discussion items.
Thank you so much. Can we please have a round of applause for our speaker? Thank you for such an engaging and insightful conversation. Thank you for sharing your story, but not only just sharing it, but going in depth and being vulnerable to share your struggles and how they help shape you. Such as when you talk about like the invisible backpack, how we all carry weight, or we all carry invisible things that are holding us but do not define us. How we can always overcome and grow, not to focus on what is lost, but to focus on the now and what is left. As you said, grow or die, and that is now going to be my motto to live by and to just advance in everything I do. And as well as talking about bouncing back, how like, yes, you can come back to where you were, or you can reach new heights, right? And it's always better to reach a new height, so to get a new perspective. As you said, the purpose always changes, right? Well, it doesn't change, but it's a dynamic, right? So it always evolves as you go on in life. And everything you said was very needed. Personally, for me, I'm not sure anyone else, but for me personally, I truly did learn from this. Thank you so much. With time in mind, I won't keep going, but
I went way long. Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's perfectly fine.
Did I take up all our time?
It's perfectly fine. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. We are now opening up for questions and answers. We do have some questions that were sent to us ahead of time, but if you do have any questions, please raise your hand or type it in the chat. I will be starting with a few questions first, but please, Mr. Obiora, please let me know if anyone raises their hand, and Ms. Musu, please let me know if there are any questions in the chat. Okay, so thank you. The first question reads, what do I need to know to stand out in my career?
To stand out?
Yes.
I would say I would say being clear about what success looks like now and in future, and to align yourself not just with the now, but with the future of whatever it is you're doing. And I like that because it stretches you a bit beyond your mandate. And if you really want to stand out, there's that extra little bit that you need, which is I'm progressive. I'm looking ahead at what's in our industry. I'm preparing for that, and I'm uniquely positioned to deliver on that. That's kind of the sweet spot where you get a lot of demand around your talent, and you get a lot of alignment in terms of the allies, because now you know what to ask for. You can say, what is that next future of this business look like? And you can start to work and have a connection point with those allies around your progress against that. And just being the industrious, resourceful Nigerians that we are is a good way.
Emmanuel, before you go to the next question, can I just please chip in? I just need to chip in and appreciate you, Chinyere. Thank you so very much. One of the qualities that I've learned of leadership is vulnerability. A lot of people look at leaders and feel they're born from a different species. They don't experience the kind of hardship or pain that we go through. But really, when someone like you come on and tell us your journey, there's an adage in my place that says, it is a person that's not been to another person's father's farm that feels their farm is the biggest. So, learning of other people's experiences, their journey in life actually builds us. A lot of people just come to Canada and they feel, oh, I haven't gotten a job and so life is going to end. No, life is not going to end, because when we learn from someone like you, we know that all we need to do is just be focused. All we need to do is continue to grow or we die. And in spite of everything that you've been through, you still have that mindset to give back to the community. You're not saying the community holds you. So thank you so much. I didn't know all of this. This is really mind-boggling and mind-blowing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being authentic. It's really, really amazing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And I know we may have another question, but I wanted to mention something that didn't go so well, just in a learning moment. That humbleness that we talked about at the beginning, I have suffered from not being humble before, and sometimes things happen. And so a quick example I wanted to share was I was strongly encouraged to go to commercial banking, which is the business I lead now, many years before, and I kept saying no. Why did I say no? It was a moment when my ego got the best of me, and I thought, I'm a branch manager now. I'm a leader now. I don't want to go and be an account manager. I don't want to start again. I want to keep going. And it wasn't until at the time I was single, I went on a first date, and I went, unfortunately, through what many women did, was I was assaulted on my first date. And I found out thereafter that the individual who assaulted me was a Toronto police officer who was moonlighting as a personal trainer. So long story short, I was very scared that this person would know where I worked and didn't want to go back to work. And I had a very caring leader. And you will find these on your path. People do give a damn. They care. And this leader came to my home and said, Chinyere, we've long been encouraging you to go to commercial. You keep saying no. I know you don't want to go back to the branch. Why don't we create a position, like we'll put you into commercial now. And so I went through 1 year of trial without my name on the door, head down, doing the work, and it was by chance. It was because of that assault that I went. Little did I know that I would like it. Little did I know that working hard and actually making the best of it would lead me to my first VP position with the bank. So even when stuff doesn't go as planned and you get in the way of yourself, making the best of it, you just don't know what's going to happen. It changes so quickly, and now am I ever grateful that I got that opportunity. And so we can sometimes get too fancy for ourselves, and that's something I always remember thinking, you know what, I almost didn't have this career. And it's about making the best of the moments that can lead you somewhere that you never imagined. And so I thought I'd share that because it wasn't that I was so strategic that I got, I just made lemonade, right? And you do that sometimes. You're resourceful. And so doing that and those principles helped me even when I'd gotten away of myself.
Thank you. If you don't mind, can you stop sharing now?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I've been sharing. This is Google Meets, not so digitally savvy. Nice to see you. Sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't see me. I was looking at you. So, but yes, please, I'm open to any and all questions, or any discussion, or any tips you have, because everyone's different, and so I know I can learn a lot from this group.
Thank you for sharing. The second question that I have here says, I'm new to Canada and I have heard a lot of talk about volunteering. Is it really important? I want to focus on my career and settle in. If it is important, what advice can you give me to help manage both my career and volunteering?
Excellent question. Quick answer is no, you don't need to do it. Don't do anything that doesn't come from your mind. If you feel that you're best positioned with your career now, follow your instinct, it won't misguide you. But if there's something that you're passionate about, like CNP, like something else, that you feel you can show up passionately and there's strong alignment with your values, for me, what that's been is an enabler. I've looked at volunteering as ways to build skill and capability in a safe environment where I don't have an annual review at the end of the year. It's given me skills, it's helped me broaden the network, it's helped me feel purposeful in my life. And well before I was a leader, I got some leadership experience in those jobs and in those volunteer roles. And that has helped me demonstrate that I'm functioning at a higher capacity to my peers, because then I can say I'm doing well in the job and I'm doing this, so I can handle more. And that's been part of what I've used to manage the challenge of, the headwind that we're facing. And so, but it's more because I'm passionate, but that outcome of capacity has been a benefit for me. So I would say the tip around managing your time, and it was a hard learned one for me because I've stretched myself thin for many years and struggled, and my husband and son can speak to that. I had a hard time saying no for many years, but I found that putting my priorities in my calendar first, and I book things a year ahead, wherever I can that matter to me. I book my holidays, I book my career goals, my thinking time. I try to eat up my time before anyone else does around my priorities, and that includes volunteering. It is important to me. So I make time for it. We only have finite time. I put those in, and everything else comes around it. And I do that with my business, and I do that with my volunteering, and that's what's worked for me now to manage. And then there's also a reality where you're going to collect all these experiences if you do like volunteering, and there's going to be a time when it's too much. And it's up to us to know when it's time to pay it forward. Who's the other young Nigerian you can help take on that volunteer opportunity that you don't want to take on, but might be a fabulous experience for them? Who else can you give a sponsorship opportunity to? We can be very strategic. If I say no, 9 times out of 10, it's not a no. It's a no, not me, but I know someone great you should talk to. And trying to lift other Black professionals up, whether it's in the bank or whether it's in volunteer work. I'm trying to create opportunities if I can't. So don't do it with a no, do it with you might want to talk to somebody else and connect others in, because it can be the most valuable early leadership experience for people that want to go into leadership or try something different. I hope that helps, but that's kind of how I look at it.
Thank you. And yes, it does. I'm actually taking my own personal notes for future review. So I'm great on your answers. The last question I have here says that mentor sponsors. It seems that it is somewhat easy to get a mentor, but not to get a sponsor. Do I really need a sponsor? Is it really important? What is the benefits and how can I approach getting one?
Excellent question. And I, again, only figured this out recently. I had a lot of mentors. Mentors teach you ways of knowing, ways of doing. Coaching and development is important. Sponsorship is more subtle. And the difference between mentorship and sponsorship is a mentor coaches you a sponsor speaks for you at the big table that you're not a part of and says, I believe in Obiora, I believe in, you know what, can really bring this to the table. And so often it happens organically, where you might have a mentor who's in your area and you don't know it, but they're a really big fan. So I have not usually asked for a sponsor saying, will you be my sponsor? It happens organically. There's that fit. That conversation is easy with them. They value your time. The way they mentor you is an investment, and you can feel that they really have your back. When you have a career opportunity coming up, that's the point where you can test and say, I'm really thinking of X. Tell me your thoughts. Like, this is how I see I fit. What do you think? And if they're more senior, ideally at least 2 levels more senior than yourself would be what I'd recommend. They're part of a table that can speak for you when you're not there and say, I know she's got the skills and capabilities to do this. And that's the difference. And I do think you need them wherever you can. But it has to be organic. It has to be real for them to speak in a way that impacts change. And so I've found that the mentors I've had longer term have often become sponsors just by me involving them in what I want to do, being open. I hope that helps.
Yes. I actually have a personal question.
Sure.
How do you keep your team motivated despite conflicts and obstacles?
Good question. They'd probably be best to answer, but I would say it's my I give a damn meter. I'm guided by people, purpose, and performance. So I believe that if you don't have the people that you're working with on your team engaged, I don't care if they're colleagues or the reports, you need to connect with people. And my way of doing that is giving a damn, checking in on them when I can, whether it's time investment, the question, but also just chit chat. How are you really doing? You know, what's going on? What are your pain points? How can I take that away? That's a way that I've found I can demonstrate that to my team, and they're pretty phenomenal people. And my mindset is usually that they're much smarter than me, and I need to get out of their way most often. And I need to just create a space for them to shine. And that's kind of the approach I take to leadership. I try to create opportunities to highlight great things that they're doing. And I believe that when you focus on what you want to grow, people will rise to the occasion, and they'll stand a little taller while they're doing it.
Okay. Thank you. And it seems I missed one question. License to be so unfair. Even in our community, there are people that seem like they don't want to help. It feels that's so easy to give up. I know you said grow or die. It's just so difficult to what would you recommend to go on when you are just simply tired and not strong enough?
Oh, that's a great one. If I'm honest, I give myself space to feel. One of my aunts, she'll ask me the question, CHINYERE, tell me how you feel, not what you think, what you feel. And I'm really good at pushing that away. Business, you know, get to the banking stuff, right? But I would acknowledge my feelings, and I would have a good cry. I would lament about the things that are not going well for a little bit, just a little bit. And then I would say, who is the positive influence that I can spend some time with right now? Who can I surround myself that will lift me up? Most often for me, that's my family or a very dear friend of mine. And I would start to create a bit of a plan. And the plan might be just showing up for a little while. Like if you're in a really unhappy role, and I've been there, I worked 2 jobs for a while when I started RBC and I moved here on my own. I would really take the time to build connection with other people, because that's what makes you more resilient, when you have those spaces to be yourself and to actually feel and deal with things. And then when it comes to the roadmap, I would not be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes I think we're so insular in our network, our community. I think that there's, whenever you can find a mutually beneficial relationship, is there someone that is very interested in understanding an area of work that you have, and you need to understand something with them that's symbiotic. I think those are the people that you can really start to prioritize and say, you know what, maybe I need to stretch out my network. If this is pulling me down, I need to build some new bridges, and be bold, ask for what you need, make some time with some new people.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to quickly check to see if there are any questions in the chat. No. Okay. With that being said, I will now be calling again. I just want to thank you for taking your time to answer the questions as well as to just share your thoughts. I will now be passing it on to Ms.
If you don't mind, I'll just quickly chip in before we go on. Thank you again, Chinyere. I wanted to ask a question around networking.
Yes.
And I'm asking this question just because of people that may be new amongst us. It's not something we do in Nigeria per se, but it's something that is recommended in Canada. Mm-hmm. What would be your take on it? Why would that be a good thing for newcomers, new professionals to do in Canada?
Yes, what would be good? So newcomers in Canada, building your network is absolutely critical. Just from visiting Nigeria and seeing different ways of being, it's a very kind of overly polite society in Canada. There's very established ways of going about it. And so I would say joining networking groups like this one is a game changer. I total respect for what you've created here in terms of a space. And then asking who else in your ecosystem do you think I could meet that could help me in this area? I would start building from people that actually know your work, know you, can speak to your soft skills that are transferable, and them connecting you with a warm introduction to somebody else. Because everybody knows about, I don't know, 150 people in their network that could be helpful. I remember reading a study years ago, and so I would start with people who know you, because sometimes people will ask and say, oh, can you give me help me get this job? I haven't worked with you. It's not customary to do that because I can't speak to that. And so I would start within our network and stretch it. I would ask for the next connection. LinkedIn is another one. Instead of just asking, can we be friends? Can we be connected? Share what you're interested in that. Share the value that you want to, I'm a Nigerian professional. This is what I'm looking at. I'm interested in connecting because that can be helpful because it is a really, really powerful tool. And listening to the social cues. If there's somebody that you sense, not the right timing, just honoring that, because we don't know what's going on in people's lives, especially now. And so I think we all have to be a little bit thoughtful about what's happening in the demands, especially people that are passionate about doing, community work too. So I would say listening to the social cues and having authentic introductions from people to expand your network. And, I'm not sure all the industries represented on this call, but I'm sure there's many. And I would go through and kind of expand it deliberately when you meet that person. Who else in your ecosystem works on X? I'm really trying to build skill around strategy work. I'm trying to get into X. Introduce me. And that will have the more genuine, helpful connection that will move quicker than trying to cold call and try to align yourself with people that you don't know. And so that would be my advice, to make sure that you go about it in a good way and in a strong way that's going to give you an outcome that you like. It's a great question. Thank you so much. That is full.
Thank you so much. And I do have a follow-up to that. But before I ask that question, I always actually recommend that right now, what we do is virtual meetings, virtual seminars, and things like that. I always recommend for new people to make sure they at least meet someone, one person during that seminar. People's names are shown, so just reach out to one person. Believe me, we're all Nigerians, and even if we're not Nigerians, we're all Africans. Reach out to someone, let them know who you are. There's something called elevator pitch.
Yeah, thank you.
Put it together and share who you are with people. And that's actually a nice segue to the next question that I have. Africans, Nigerians, we're highly skilled and experienced.
Yes.
Highly educated. Seriously, before you open your mouth, they're saying they have masters, they have this, they have that. They have PhDs. And so they come into the country with all the experiences, with all the qualifications, and they're told, you don't have Canadian experience. They're told, we're sorry, we can't hire you. And it's not easy, to be very, I've been there, done that. I mean, I tend to tell people, you know what, there's nothing wrong in starting small, but what would be your advice to someone coming in with so much expectation, feeling they've landed, but actually having the feeling of grounded? What would you say to them?
I would say believe in yourself, trust your skill and capability, and try to give yourself the time to be thoughtful about how you can invite others to getting to know your talent. I would have a beginner's mindset, a humble mindset going about that. Even despite the PhD and everything, it is, I think it would be important to make a plan, give yourself many options, because there will be people that will block you. And part of my prep that I don't talk about much is the planning I go through, which is I don't plan for the next role. I don't plan for 2 roles. I plan for 20 years, okay? I look at what do I want to be at the end of my career? What are a couple of key experiences that could be helpful? Out of that, what are some others that can lead me to that? And I try to create a pyramid of options, because if one thing that we didn't touch on, which is so important for Black professionals, Nigerian professionals, is aligning yourself with a leader who gets it. I have faced discrimination in the workplace. I've had people try to block me, and you can feel it. So when you're in the interview and you're about to take the perfect job, and that leader you just got that wrong feeling about, be careful. I would try to align the role, the leader. And by doing that pyramid, I don't care if I don't get the first job. I don't care if I get the last job. I have now 7 jobs that I can get that will give me transferable skills for the next level that I'm looking for, and the next one. And so I'm not going to get heartbroken when that one doesn't work out, because I planted seeds. And the other thing that I found that is an enabler for Black professionals like myself, something that I've done, I've never really talked about it, is outside of the pyramid, is I've gone against the grain. I don't want the same career path as my neighbor to the left or the right. How am I going to differentiate myself? And that's why I think of, what does the banker of the future need to do? What do I need really? And then I try to build that skill early so that I now have a zigzaggy effect within my career, and I'm an outlier. I've got something different. I'm not competing neck and neck in the same stream. And I'm not the smartest person. I'm not the most qualified. There's a lot of things that I need to work on, but by giving myself choice and flexibility, that's helped me navigate the realities of some of the stuff we talked about. And so I would say I align myself with the role, the leader, and really good planning, so I don't push myself in a corner if there's somebody negative or systemic racism that you're coming up against. Someone just doesn't want me in this job, I'm on to the next. So give yourself options. Be strategic.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think I see somebody raise their hand. Emmanuel, do you want to take a look at that?
Oh, you're on mute?
No, I don't think so.
There's Miss Adam Edosa Idode, Adams Idode, sorry. You raised your hand.
Oh, okay.
Hi, good evening. Just want to say, CHINYERE, ENI, this has been the highlight of my weekend, and my weekend actually. Just being vulnerable. This is the best part of my day, and I thank you. I want to really sincerely thank you for just being so humble, powerful, inspirational, being so motivational, and also being just yourself. I think you've really shown how tragedy can bring the best of us. And I just thank you. Words cannot explain how motivating you have been. I'm just hearing you and hearing how powerful and how strong you are. But I had this thing when you were speaking, and I saw your name, and I'm seeing that you've really taken the challenge. And I said, your name is CHINYERE. You know, was that an obstacle, just your name, in terms of being in a powerful room, and then like, what kind of name? What's that name? did it cause you to be uncomfortable? Number one, I say that because I have children who are born here with Nigerian names. They don't have any English name, but their names are very meaningful. And the fact that you kept that name is your identity. And it's just a part of who you are. It's like, take me for who I am, and this is it. And to me, that's a very strong attribute. So just because a lot of Nigerians who come into Canada keep their original names and don't want to change it, but some of them do change it because it can be a block to them getting the next job. So I wanted, if you could share with your name, how that came across in the different levels of employment that you had reason to, and how you were able to overcome that name calling, or, you know, you're pronouncing your name to start with. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Honestly, I tried to prepare myself for today because I was very nervous, and I want to honor this group because it means a lot to me. So I really appreciate your feedback. For my name, I think that journey started day one with the bank, and it was a decision I made in the moment whether I would go by Chi-Chi, my nickname. Right? I was like, banking, Chi-Chi, I don't know how that's gonna go. let me go with CHINYERE. And my English name is Pearl. And I could have used it, but no one's ever called me that. I've always been Chi-Chi, right? And I knew that I wanted to enter the bank as myself, and it was scary. I remember putting Pearl on my resume, and I just had this feeling that I wasn't going to be me. And I thought, I do want to have the take it or leave it. And so they damn well better learn to pronounce my name. And no one cared for many years. And I did my thing. But at the end of the day, I feel proud that I kept it, and I would not judge anyone who changed it, because it's what you do, what comes from your mind and what's right for you. For me, I struggle with, you're not Nigerian enough, fitting in, you're not Cree enough, you're not Nigerian enough. This is my identity, and I hold it dear, so I'm going to be me, and I'm going to do it. And it wasn't, at the time, we had a whole specialist fraud ring, Nigerian fraud ring at the bank on 419, okay? So I was nervous. I didn't want to come in, and then they associate me with that, and so I was worried, but part of trying to be excellent, trying to compete with myself, trying to be better, and actually just honor the life I was given. I'm not supposed to be here. I feel survivor's guilt. I darn well better make my life count, is my mindset. And so I'm doing something other people don't have the good fortune of doing. I'm aging as a privilege. I need to be myself. And so I don't regret a minute. And over time, people have started to ask how to pronounce it. And now it's not even an issue, because I've established myself enough that people know that there's some legitimacy there, and that I don't need to worry about it as much. But when I meet people, and as recently as a few years ago, I mean, people will talk to someone on my team instead of me because they think they're the boss and not me. And so I have all kinds of hidden microaggressions that happen. All kinds of things that happen when they find out I'm Indigenous, and whether I pay tax and all kinds of things. But I try to remember people are just curious, and the way that they ask me what happened to my leg, it's just a little bit of ignorance, and it's a point to educate. And, that's something that I feel very good about. And so I'm grateful. And, my son has a Nigerian name. I'm married to a Black man, a Jamaican Canadian, also someone who has a dual experience. And, Ike is my son. He has an English name, Isaac. It'll be up to him to make that choice. But that's something that is really important to me, and it's around being who you are. And because I already felt different, I felt like the name was just one more thing, and it's take it or leave it. So I would encourage your kids to be confident in doing what they feel is most comfortable for them, and when they're going to stand up tall. And someone calling me Pearl, I mean, I don't even pay attention, because it was never my name. So for me, I had to be me in order to have any real confidence. I didn't want to have fake confidence or be a talking head or a fembot, which I just didn't want to do that. So I'm grateful, and but everyone is on their own. You got to make the choice for yourself. That was one that worked for me. Thank you. This has been great.
Thank you.
I really appreciate
it. Before I continue, are there any other comments? Okay. With that being said, I will now be calling on Ms. Nusu Afolabi, who is the digital lead of CNP. She works for RBC and she has BSc Banking and Finance, MBA at University of Lagos, and she is passionate about providing financial advice, exceptional client experience, and finding solutions that meet each individual needs, problems, resolution, and prevention. And she will be giving the vote of thanks and closing remarks. Over to you, madam.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. I'm so grateful. It's been very, very educating, inspiring. Thank you so much, CHINYERE. We are very, very grateful. At the age of 8, I was able to pick a lot. Your tenacity, you were so strong up till now. You kept going, and your VP. We're so proud of you. Thank you so much. And we thank everyone that dialed in today. Thank you for joining us. We're so grateful. And
sorry to cut you. Sorry, someone has his hands raised.
Okay, please let's
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, can I go ahead now? My name is Chinonso.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So I just wanted to thank CHINYERE for her presentation. I met you the first time at City of Toronto. There was a seminar for women of color, I believe. I came to you that day and I asked you a question as regards how to get to where I want to be with my name. My name is Chino, so I'm using this name and I want to get to where I want to be. And you told me to go ahead, get those certifications, get whatever it is that would differentiate you from others. Make sure you are at the top at all times. And that has been working for me. I just want to say thank you for that presentation that day and that which you are still doing for women and everyone, especially Nigerians. So thank you very much and all the best. That's it.
Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see each other again at another event when we get out of this crazy year. That would be lovely.
Okay.
Did I miss the last bit? No. Okay, good. There we are. Lovely.
You can continue, Mosun.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So, as I was saying, we would like to thank all the participants today. Thank you for joining in. We're so grateful. And we would like to thank our president, Mrs. Adejisola, for putting all this together. Thank you so much. We are very, very grateful. Thank you for imparting all this knowledge. And thank you for always being there for us. Also, we would like to thank our board of directors and our sponsors. Thank you so much for always being there for us. We really, really do appreciate you all. Thank you. I don't want to take much of our time, but I would like to call on all our sponsors, thanking them for what they've done and what they're still doing. Our board of directors first, Mr. Ebere Morgan, thank you for always being there. Deborah Ojo, thank you so much. Dr. Muyiwa Ogunlano, thank you. And our sponsors, thank you so much for everything you've done for us. Thank you. And from now, I would like us to just, I can't remember sharing the national anthem or whatever, but I don't know if Mrs. Adejisola would like to say anything, but we want to appreciate you so much. Thank you so much, CHINYERE, for being who you are and impacting all this knowledge. Thank you so much. Mrs. Adejisola, do you have anything for us?
You're on mute.
Am I?
No, Mr.
I just love the mute thing. That's the best word for 2020. Is becoming the most important word in 2021 too. I just want to join everybody to say thank you. Can we all please unmute and give CHINYERE a resounding applause, please? Let's all unmute. Please unmute. Let's somebody we're proud of it. Thank you so much. We gain strength and power from your courage. And we know it's not easy.
No.
We know it's not easy. We know there are nights that you wish, why me? One of the things I've come to say whenever why me comes into my brain is why not me? Because with every why not me, I learn. So thank you again. We really appreciate you. And I see one of my girlfriends joined, Stephanie O2. Wow, thank you so much for joining. It's so good to see you. She learned about this yesterday and she showed up.
Hello, I'm here as well. It's Justina.
Oh, Ikwe is also, oh my goodness. Oh, I called these people yesterday. They're powerful women from RVC and they joined in. Thank you so very much. It's so nice to see you guys.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you. I just want to quickly talk about our chat. Please go into our chat. Our website is there. Our email is there. If you have any ideas, if you want to volunteer, we have a form for volunteering. We have so many departments. There's so much to be done, and there are very few laborers, so we need help. We have our newsletter. If you want to receive our newsletter, the link is there. We have our LinkedIn, all our social media there. Please follow us, reach out to us. Let's be a part of building a community. Believe you me, we have wonderful people in our community that we can always learn from. So thank you everybody for joining. We're a council of professionals. We like to keep to time. As you can see, it's 6:59. We said we'll finish at 7 and we're doing just that. Thank you everyone and wishing you all a wonderful weekend.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
you for coming.
Thank you so much, CHINYERE. It's really, really a pleasure. Thank you. Nicola, thank you for joining. Pastor Lajimeji, thank you for joining.
Thank you. You are really doing a good job. It is hard.
Thank you, sir. We need everybody to be a part of the good job. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much.